the defending champion, the all-new Yamaha YZ450F.
What's up guys, Trevor Hunter here with Dirt Bike Test. Today we have Jeff Belknap and we're going over the 2023 Yamaha YZ450FX. This is their off-road race bike, competition platform, very similar to the older generation now YZ450F. And yeah, today's just our first impression on it. I've put in well over 100 hours on this kind of generation between the 2021 and 2022. But Jeff here, the last Yamaha he's ridden was like a 2017?
Yeah, my personal one I had was a 17, so okay. Quite a bit of changes.
Yeah, no, much different motorcycle. So I'll kind of go over what I already know, and then we'll go over also how Jeff felt in comparison to how his old Yamaha used to be. So starting off, this motor is really fast. It's got incredible power, almost too much at times, especially with the stock mapping. But yeah, no one should complain that this bike is slow.
No, not at all. Plenty of power.
Yeah. So, I mean, starting off, it's got pretty good throttle response, a lot of bottom end and torque, and kind of into the mid-range, it pulls really good. And then the top end, it doesn't have maybe quite as much as like a KTM. But this bike honestly responds well to riding more the bottom to mid, I feel like.
Yeah, that first quarter throttle like we were talking about is very snappy.
Yep.
You know, in the tight stuff, I felt like riding up a gear helped for me. Yep. You know, helped a little bit. Where obviously you're a higher level rider than me, so a little different. But for me, that's where I noticed it was like crack of the throttle was hold on.
Yeah. No, this bike definitely, even for faster guys, handling wise and just kind of power wise, it does respond well to kind of riding taller gears, and maybe not riding like Justin Marsh out there.
Right.
Kind of more like Ken Roxon style, just shift up a gear smooth, easy, and just flow.
Right. No, absolutely.
So yeah, moving on from there. Obviously, with this Yamaha, you can change the mapping pretty much on the fly. It's got the two map button on the handlebars, as well as the GYTR app, which is free for any smartphone out there, so you can play with the mapping there. We have a few maps we kind of gravitate towards. One being the Magic map, and then another being our Smooth map, developed by Jimmy Lewis. So those are two of our preferences, and we didn't get the chance to try them today for you, Jeff, but I think that would help where you may think the bike is lacking, is being hard to ride.
Yeah, I think so. I would greatly want to try that. I think it'd be a huge improvement for just like my riding capability. But I'm with you. It felt like crack of the throttle was quite a bit, but once you rode up a gear, it was fine. And then, like I said, it still pulled all the way to the mid, but yeah, it didn't have that over rev like some of the European bikes.
Yeah,
I felt like.
Yeah, no. So overall, motor's very impressive, very strong. Yeah, you're not really going to complain that there's not enough power. So, moving on to suspension, I would say as a stock off-road bike, this bike does have some of the better suspension out there. It's got the standard KYB spring forks, KYB shock, same components really that Yamaha's been using for probably almost 2 decades now, and it's hard to beat.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a fan of the oil fork still. Yeah. So for me, the KYB stuff on this bike, like you said, out of the box, it's one of the best I think out there.
Yeah.
Stock bikes that we've all tested.
Yeah,
for sure.
No, it's pretty good. Yeah, so I'm playing with the suspension with this bike. There's a little bit of harshness kind of initially, and I know from experience in the last couple years, just going up a couple spring rates or a spring rate or two really helps with this bike. Just brings the front end up in the stroke. So it rides a little bit in the softer valving, and it rides more balanced. So I know that's a really big change, or a small change that makes a big difference on the track and trails that I think really helps and benefits this bike for just about anyone out there. Do you experience any of that little harshness or stiffness, or was it good for you?
Yeah, I think so, and I think obviously our weight differences, but for me the back was a little on the soft side.
Yep.
The front, for the most part, the bigger stuff, yeah, I mean, it did pretty good, but I did feel like some of that chatter bumps, like it did have that little bit of harshness towards it, but like you said, springing it, which you're going to have to do to any bike anyways, it's going to come down to it, but that's the only thing, otherwise I think overall it handled 80% of everything very well.
Yeah. No, it's suspension is very good on this bike, just like pretty much every other Yamaha. So, yeah. So suspension, the KYB suspension, it's tough to beat. Works really good. Obviously, there's room for improvement, but as with most stock bikes, you can almost always fine tune it to your personal rider preference. Yeah. Moving on to kind of the handling and just overall characteristics of the bike. it's not as wide as it once was back in the 2017, 2018 days.
Yep.
It's come a long ways, but you still feel, especially you're coming off a Suzuki, which is one of the thinnest bikes. You still feel a little wider than that bike.
I do, and like you said, but I mean, such an improvement from the earlier generation 17, 18 model. Just the thickness of the plastic, you can feel that difference for you. So on that side of things, I think it's amazingly different, and it proved the bike overall tremendously.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, if you're jumping from bike to bike to bike, then you may notice it for a little bit, but I think after 20, 30 minutes, it'll feel just like normal, and then you'll never think about it again.
And I don't feel it as much doing the trails as I do getting on the track.
Yeah.
That's where I notice it. Just getting off and you just take off on the trails, honestly, to me, I didn't notice it.
Yeah.
That's what I liked about it.
Yeah, no, it's definitely come a long way. Very good, and some people even prefer it. So, kind of moving on to the handling. Bump absorption on this bike is pretty good, one of the better ones. Like I said, if you riding a gear taller, really helps there as well. You kind of rev this bike out. It doesn't handle quite as well as some of the other bikes that if you rev it out, the handling doesn't decrease maybe as much as like it does on this bike, but riding the taller gears really helps this bike and just be smooth, kind of with the power and everything. It smooths out that chassis feel as well.
Yeah, kind of, exactly. I mean, that's exactly what it does. It just smoothens everything out. It keeps it from like upsetting itself is how I see it, you know. But yeah, riding up a gear, I think, and also obviously the first gear being a lower ratio than the regular F model, competition model, which is nice in the trails, but that's where I think why we feel that crack of the throttle. Yeah. And like if you get into first gear, some of that tight stuff, it's really jerky. Yeah, no, it's definitely, this bike is one of the rare kind of off-road race bikes that has like a different transmission from the motocross model. So it has a 5-speed wide ratio transmission. So first gear especially, and even second gear, they're pretty low. First gear is almost too low to use for a lot of our stuff. Yeah.
So kind of leaves you to second gear. And then fourth and fifth gear is taller than normal. So it definitely gives you a wider range, broader range where you can kind of go into the tight stuff and go into the fast stuff without having to change gearing or kind of messing around with the bike set. You kind of just one and done and kind of make it work and go.
Yeah, nope, I agree.
So kind of within the cockpit, it's got the dish and the seat. Some riders like that. A lot of us, we like the tall seat, so that's an easy modification. I know some of our riders, especially the taller ones, notice the foot peg to seat ratio is a little cramped. It's like the lower foot pegs. And then we run our handlebar mounts in position 2, which is the back hole, but facing forward. It comes stock. It comes with the mounts in position 3, which is the forward mounts with the facing backwards. And a lot of us prefer the position 2 over the position 3, just a little better control of the bike and a little more comfortable.
It was very neutral feeling. When I got on, I felt very comfortable, very at home. Yeah, I don't think, I think, like you said, making that change that we did to that position was perfect for this model.
Yeah. And a couple other things, just quick. The brakes are pretty good. It's got a cable clutch, which a lot of the bikes now have hydraulic clutch, but I'm a cable clutch guy. I tend to prefer that feel and kind of the modulation of the cable clutch.
Yeah,
so what do you think?
I think so too, and going back to the generation, I think Yamaha, like this is the newest one I rode, but with this front brake is tremendously better than what we had of braking from the earlier one, like I said, my 17. Same thing with the clutch. The clutch had a really, really good feel to it, where I think the other models didn't. And I'm with you. I'm a fan of the clutch cable style still. It's something with the feel for it, and some of the slow stuff, and just being able to keep your finger on it, it seems a little more responsive.
Yep. No, I'm agree with you there. So overall, bike is really good. We're getting ready to do our 450 off-road shootout, and it's definitely going to be a contender. An all-stock trim. This bike kind of checks all the boxes. It's got a fast motor that you can also tune for free with just that GYTR Power Tuner app. So that's a huge advantage this bike has. Suspension is really good stock, and overall just handles really well, and it's just a very neutral feeling bike, other than maybe it has a lot of power, but everything else feels pretty neutral about it.
Yeah, I think so too. I think the power, and one thing I've always kind of wasn't too sure of the handlebars, but once we moved that in that position, and on the trail, I felt like they suited the bike perfectly. We didn't get a whole lot of time, on the moto side of things, where I always felt like on my 17, I changed them, but I felt like they were really kind of narrow, and this bike has a little tendency to feel a little bit taller, and that could be like how you mentioned with the pegs to the seat difference, why you make it feel like a little taller than the other models. But the bars, at the end of the day, I was really surprised once you made those changes how I liked it, and I was totally fine with it. You know, all day.
Yeah, no, it's a pretty solid machine all the way around, and yeah, we're looking forward to put some more time on this. Like I said, we do our 450 shootout, and then hopefully from there we'll build into the project bike build and kind of see where we can fine tune this bike and make it as good as we can. So till then, you can hit me up at TrevorHunter224 on Instagram or Trevor@dirtbiketest.com for any questions on this or any other testing related questions. I'd be happy to answer or kind of point you in the right direction. And as always, head over to dirtbiketest.com, check out everything we've got going on there, and yeah, we'll see you out in the trails.